listen to this, diet wasn't working and exercise wasn't working anymore. If you're a woman over 35, those two statements will really make a lot of sense. And what I found was there's a certain set of hormones, leptin and ghrelin, that are responsible for sugar burning or fat burning. When we go through high levels of stress and we eat sugar, that means alcohol, bread, cereal, rice, pastas, those two come together. Usually when there's stress, people go have a glass of wine to relax.
Yep.
Wine does not relax anyone. Wine stresses the body. Okay. So all your biomarkers go up and you get more stressed. It does numb your brain to make thinking you're relaxed. But those two things of stress and sugar, it flips from fat burning to sugar burning. Now, the reason that's important with metabolic health is I've got to the point where I started noticing like, oh my gosh, if I burn sugar, I feel terrible. If I burn fat, I could tell you which one was burning. And then I started realizing, oh my gosh, 90% of Americans have switched over to burning sugar. The reason that's a key thing is that metabolically, your brain, when you are burning sugar, you cannot tell when you're hungry or when you're full.
On today's episode of Empowered in Health, I have Dr. Cody Golman here, and Dr. Cody has an incredible expertise around women's health, metabolic health, really teaching women the importance of feeding our bodies with intention, not going through extremes, not continuing on the road of chronic dieting, and so much more. And I really appreciate the work you're doing, Dr. Cody. So thanks so much for being here today.
All right. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I know you have an incredible story of your background of being in the Army, a history of bodybuilding, like really some significant things that you've learned experience-wise along the way in your own health journey that has led you to the work you're doing now. So can you share a little bit more with us about, you know, what you learned in the past and kind of what led you to how you're serving in the women's health space?
Yeah, I'll make it brief because like a lot of us, I'm sure we've been through a lot in our lives. I was in the Army, I joined at 17, wow. And I was a tank commander by 19. And the bullets were 100 pounds apiece. And I was the bullet guy. So I was throwing the bullets. The bullet hole was about a foot over my head. So I was throwing the bullets. You can do 3 a minute over your head. So over the course of like a year or two, I started getting numbness in my hand and headaches and tingling and started going to the medical doctor for help. And I went to different specialists, heart specialists and nerve specialists and different specialists. And they said, you know, nothing's wrong with you. But they started giving me pills. And I started kind of wondering, I was 19 at the time. So I thought, I don't know what is this pill going to do? What was interesting was as I started getting worse and worse, and now I started having heart problems, asthma. So finally what had happened was that someone had suggested to go to a natural healthcare doctor, a chiropractor. And I just thought it was the weirdest thing to do. And because I already been to all the doctors. And I didn't even think they were even real doctors. And so he checked my neck with an x-ray and he found that a bone was pinching a nerve in my neck. Wow. And I said, no, it's not. I've already been to the neurologist. He said the neurologist only checks for peripheral nerves, nerves on the outside. Your neurologist didn't check spinal nerves. I'm like, why wouldn't they do that? Yeah. He made an adjustment. I had an electric signal shoot down my arm and hand and feelings started coming back. You know, this is about a year and a half of this being in a lot of pain and eventually to the point of not just numbness, but I was losing feeling in my hand where I couldn't, actually use my hand. So over the course of time, I started noticing my asthma completely cleared up. I had a heart palpitation that completely cleared up also. Wow. So that was my experience. And I said, he never mentioned to me like that was going to happen. So I started opening up books. And I found that the nerves that go from your back, that go down your arm, also control your heart and lungs. Wow. And I said, oh my God, how come no one's ever told this before, right? No one's said this. How come the doctors didn't say anything, right? So that's what led me to become a chiropractor and actually led me to natural healthcare and started, my thought was, how many people took these meds instead of going to try to find a doctor that was going to look for the cause of the problem, not looking at the symptoms?
And I so appreciate you speaking to your experience because that's one of the most profound things that I've started to learn more, the body as an ecosystem and how everything is wildly interconnected and how we really don't know the depth of how much systems work together until we really get educated from doctors and practitioners that are doing this work and can really understand like this is how the body actually works. And this is how we actually get deeper into serving in different capacities. And so I appreciate you sharing your perspective. What an incredible story. You know, Dr. Cody, I know you are the creator of an amazing program called the Fast 40 System, and you work a lot with women and men on their health journeys. And you start to teach them about things like how does the body work as a whole? And how do we kind of pay attention to the ecosystem? And one of the things I'd love to kind of switch into and pivot into is talking a little bit more about this idea of metabolic health and really what that is at the core. And I think, you know, when I think about my journey and what I've learned, a lot of this idea of metabolism is kind of skewed as far as the information of what we understand it truly is and what it truly does in the body. And so let's start there. Can you talk a little bit about what metabolic health is, what metabolism is, and why we really need to understand what it does for us on an overall health standpoint?
Yeah, well, I'll start by just saying how I even got into, because you mentioned about, you know, getting into women specifically in weight loss.
Yeah.
Over 20 years of working with people, I've seen every type of cancer completely heal. Digestive cancers, breast cancer, MS, fibromyalgia, I've seen them all heal. And in my office, we didn't do it with any meds, any drugs, because we tapped into the drugs that were already inside. Yeah. And so that's my certainty that that's the case. But there was one thing that I was not helping with, and it was excess weight. And I watched my patients doing Jenny Craig and Weight Watchers and paleo and keto, HCG diets. And what was happening was they would lose weight, gain it back, and they were screwing up their metabolic health.
Yeah.
They were screwing up their hormones also. So by the age of 37, I had a gut. I used to be a bodybuilder and I knew how to work out. It wouldn't go anywhere. Yeah. So this is kind of how I'm tying this in was I started kind of going, well, this will ring true to a lot of people listening to this. Diet wasn't working and exercise wasn't working anymore. If you're a woman over 35, those two statements will really make a lot of sense. And what I found was there's a certain set of hormones, leptin and ghrelin, that are responsible for sugar burning or fat burning. Okay. Yep. And so I'm kind of weaving this in because you mentioned about metabolic health. When we go through high levels of stress and we eat sugar, that means alcohol, bread, cereal, rice, pastas. When those two come together, usually when there's stress, people go have a glass of wine to relax.
Yep.
Okay. The wine does not relax anyone.
Right.
Wine stresses the body. Okay. So all your biomarkers go up and they get more stressed. It does numb your brain to make thinking you're relaxed. But those two things of stress and sugar, it flips from fat burning to sugar burning. Okay. Now, the reason that's important regarding your question with metabolic health is I've got to the point where I started noticing like, oh my gosh, if I burn sugar, I feel terrible.
Yeah.
If I burn fat, I could tell you which one was burning. And then I started realizing, oh my gosh, 90% of Americans have switched over to burning sugar. The reason that's a key thing is that metabolically, your brain, when you are burning sugar, you cannot tell when you're hungry or when you're full. That's important. Many people judge themselves. Oh, I got to get off sugar. I got to stop eating so much. If sugar has hijacked your system, you can't tell when you're hungry or full. If you're burning fat, fat accurately tells your brain when you're full and when you're hungry. So let's kind of start from there.
I love that. So share a little bit more about how you can start to actually move towards more of the fat burning state. I know there's obviously things you can manipulate in your lifestyle and manipulate in habits and so much more. But for the person that's listening to this, that is fascinated by this idea of sugar burning versus fat burning and maybe feels like they're really stuck in sugar burning, what can they start to do or what can they start to explore to maybe switch the metabolic pathway that they're using most?
Yeah. So let's talk about how do you know if you're a sugar burner or fat burner? So that way people can start there.
Yeah.
You know you're a sugar burner if your body stores fat. That's it. Yeah. Now, here's the other things that come along with it. Poor sleep, lower energy, increased anxiety and depression, increased menopausal symptoms.
Yep.
So menopause was designed to be something that is a natural change. When you're a sugar burner, you'll have way more hot flashes and you go, what the hell is going on with my body? Menopause was not meant to be like that. Menopause is a natural change that wasn't supposed to be severe. Yeah. So if you burn fat, how do you know you're burning fat? Your body's lean, you sleep great, you have great energy. And by the way, I'm talking about at 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, and 90 years old. That's the case. We have patients well into the 80s and 90s that are like, oh my God, I feel so good when I burn fat. Yes. Yeah. So how do you tell is the first thing. So second thing is, well, if I am a sugar burner, how do I switch it?
Yep.
There's a lot behind this. We have a whole process behind this. We have a doctor supervised program. One of the things I want people to understand is that there really isn't a cookie cutter way to be able to help that. We work one-on-one and we customize everything to our patients. However, there are some fundamentals. Many women go to the doctor to get their hormones checked and balanced. But I find it interesting that no one's ever been told that you already have a doctor inside you that's checking and balancing your hormones. That appointment time for most people is at from midnight to 2 a.m. When someone gets proper sleep from midnight to 2 a.m. Now, obviously, if someone has different sleep times, it'll change. You have a deep sleep cycle where your inner doctor literally goes in and it regulates and balances all 50 hormones that we know about, and it ups them, increases them. It even releases growth hormone so you can build muscle. Yeah. So one of the number one things, if you want balanced hormones and you want to become a fat burner, the number one thing you can do is pick a proper sleep time and dial in all the factors to get good sleep.
Yeah. And something that I think can be really hard for all of us in such a connected, busy, overwhelming lifestyle that we lead in some capacity. And so, Dr. Cody, for the person that's listening to this that wants to really start to figure out how to become a fat burner or really focus on switching their metabolic health or optimizing how they feel, and sleep is a problem, what would be the best advice you would give them to really start to set themselves up for success so they can start to move the lever on that?
Yeah. One of the first things I would do if someone like, hey, I want to really improve my sleep, I would go 30 days removing sugar from your diet, specifically refined sugar. I'd remove bread, cereal, rice, pasta, and alcohol for 30 days. The reason why is that, again, sugar hijacks your brain.
Yeah.
So you do get a sense of reward when you eat sugar. You get a dopamine high, but all those dopamine highs come at a price. You'll also come with a low. Okay. So to throw your sleep off. Secondly, I would stop eating or drinking at least about 2 to 2.5 hours before you go to bed and pick a bedtime consistently.
Yeah.
Now, how do you do that? The only way to do that is something really crazy. It's very crazy. This wild idea. It's called eating on time.
Yeah.
It is a nuts idea. It's called chrononutrition is the fancy word.
Wow.
You need to make sure you pick an eating time each day. Why? I have women that go, God, that sounds just so too strict. No, it sounds loving.
Yep.
When you choose to eat on time, you're choosing to love yourself. Mm-hmm. You stop at the gas station because you're about to run out of gas. But what many people do is pass up the gas station and expect their car to keep running. This has nothing to do with being strict. It's like, how much can you love yourself is what this whole thing's about. The other part of that is if you stop drinking water 2 hours, before bed, it means you must actually drink enough water throughout the day.
Yeah.
So during those 30 days, I would also recommend someone drink half their body weight in ounces. So if someone weighs 100 pounds, you want to weigh, 50 ounces. Someone weighs 200 pounds, drink 100 ounces per day. And 60% of that water should be consumed before like noon, 1 o'clock. That would be my suggestions.
I love that. And the predictability, like what I want to recall that you just talked about, is predictability for the body can be really powerful. And I love your concept of eating on time and not waiting or prolonging till you're too busy and then you're ravenous and then you go down the road of probably making choices that aren't really going to fuel yourself well. And so that idea of predictability can be so profound for overall health. And so I just appreciate you sharing that, because that is something that I want women to continue to understand. And I know, Dr. Cody, one of the other things that you shared with me that you've talked about too in your work is this idea of how we can't starve ourselves to healthy. And this also kind of goes into this same topic of like eating on time also means eating well and eating calorically dense foods. And like you said, loving the body with intention. So talk a little bit about that piece to the puzzle, because I know for women specifically, like we've been marketed and shown and shared for decades and decades how we need to chase thin, we need to cut carbs, we need to do this, this, and this in order to fit the mold. And we know wholeheartedly as people that are working in the health space, how starving yourself or cutting things out dramatically is the road to disaster. So can you speak to that a little bit?
The statement, no one has ever starved themselves to healthy. it sounds like a really neat thing to say. I hope women are listening to this and take that to heart. No one has starved themselves to healthy. Every diet you've been shown is starvation. Every single one. I haven't found one that's not starving. I have not found one. And which is why I created the Fast 40 hormone reset program. You said something really important, which was caloric dense foods. That is a whole week concept. Yeah. But we personally, Erin, we have all of our patients, I give them a list of caloric dense foods and non-caloric dense foods. And for 40 days, I have them not eat. We have them remove the ones that are not caloric dense. Now, here's why. Here, let me give you a list of what I have people not eating to lose fat. Lettuce, tomatoes, celery. When you look at some of these things, they're called net zero calorie foods. Yeah. They're foods that take just as much energy to chew as they give you. So it gives you the illusion of calories. Now, are there nutrients in those foods? Yeah, those foods are great. There's tons of nutrients. But the biggest issue is when people come to me is they already been under eating. Yeah. So I find a lot of people that are storing fat love eating salads. Yeah. And what they're doing is they're starving themselves. So we get rid of all the salads, stop the salads, and we do something crazy. You eat enough meat. Yeah. And I have vegetarians, which is a tough one because you got to know what you're doing with vegetarian, right? For proteins wise. But we have people eating meats, real vegetables. So what would be a caloric rich vegetable? Broccoli, cauliflower, asparagus, green beans. Because otherwise, it's important for someone to understand this, is that there's a part of your brain, it's in the amygdala and hippocampus. And what happens is it's called the anti-starvation mechanism. Yeah. When you eat food, but you don't get enough calories, your body says, oh crap, I'm in danger of not being able to get enough food. When you starve yourself, you're triggering fat storage, not the other way around. Yeah. So I am really not someone that teaches a lot of fasting, especially for women. So there are other reasons for fasting. I get it. But if you're trying to lose fat permanently, I would not long-term fast. We do the opposite. We choose eating times and we re-trigger thrival mode, because I find that the way most people are fasting, it sometimes, many times, will trigger survival mode and then they'll store fat.
Yes, the survival mode component is the big thing that I want women to continue to hear, because this isn't only like maybe how you're living your life or what your job looks like or what your day-to-day is. It's also potentially what you're choosing through your lifestyle. And so even when it comes to habits and routines, there are things that can keep your body in that survival mode place. And I just appreciate you sharing that too, Dr. Cody, because it's another piece of the puzzle that I want women to continue to hear and understand when we're thinking about the larger picture of health. And, I know for you, you work with a lot of different people in a lot of different capacities. And I know we just talked about this idea of potentially under eating, making sure you're not starving yourself. But I am also curious, like, what are the potential mistakes you see with the clients that you serve when they're trying to create body composition change or switch over into fat burning or want to lose fat mass? Like, what are the mistakes they're making beyond maybe the fueling component?
First mistake is not eating enough. That is the number one thing I see, not eating enough. And you can disguise it as whatever diet you want, you're not eating enough. Second thing is, I'd say for half the people, is overworking out. Like thinking that you're going to go to the gym and burn fat. I think one of the other pieces that like we talked about, is the chrononutrition. So deciding that you are important enough to eat on time and stopping I'm being strict and all this kind of stuff. I think allowing yourself to, the biggest challenge here is that a lot of the data, which you've seen this too, Erin, a lot of the data that we've been told is wrong. Yeah. So the mistakes come from a good place, but they come from the wrong information. Yes. The majority of weight loss fads, including the most recent injections and diets, I have found, this is my opinion, I think they come from men who don't understand women's bodies. Yes. That's what I think is really happening. So I think you could say the number one mistake is listening to a man that doesn't understand women's physiology. That could be the number one mistake.
Yes. And that's fair. And I appreciate you saying that too, because, a lot of the work that I've continued to do and have studied a lot about is the idea of how women are so uniquely different and we are not small men. Yeah. And we have to really tailor and personalize health strategies and how we look at the body and how we actually work on ourselves in a totally different way. One of the things I'd love for you to expand on a little bit there, Dr. Cody, is for female physiology, like what are the things women need to understand are different about us, and why do we need to be mindful about how our approach needs to be unique? We'll get back to our conversation shortly after this message. If you are an overwhelmed and completely confused mom who just wants a simplified, easy to follow, and understandable plan when it comes to their health and wellness journey, then you're in the right place. As a wellness coach, I focus most on empowering women to follow a highly personalized and bio-individual plan that actually gets you results and that feels sustainable for your longevity. I'd love to invite you to set up a free coaching call to talk about your health and wellness journey. Head to erinshreer.com/coaching to set up your call today. Again, that URL is erinshreer.com/coaching to set up your call. And to make it even easier, head to the show notes of this podcast and click free coaching session to set up your call ASAP. Now let's dive back into the conversation.
Yeah, well, this probably is a much larger conversation. I'm trying to compact into a small one. Men and women have the same hormones. For the sake of saying this, maybe it's obvious, but women's have a cycle of hormones from anywhere from 28, 24. I mean, it's different for everyone, to 35 days. It can be different. Men, we have the same hormones. We have the same exact cycle, except it happens in 24 hours.
Wow.
Now, no one's really even talking about that. So we don't notice, like when we're down, it's like, I'm down for about 5 minutes, right? Right. When a woman's down, it's like, man, I'm down for 5 days. What is going on? And all of a sudden you go, oh, I had my menstrual cycle, right?
Right.
Right. So I'm laughing because, it's not funny. It's just, this is the way it is. And so I think one of the biggest things to understand is that because your body before, 35, 40, and I've had women have babies well into their 50s, but just to remind you guys, gals, your body's preparing to have a baby every month.
Yeah.
Can I just remind you of what it's actually doing?
Yeah.
Because since the 1960s and before that, the menstrual cycle was like this horrific, terrible thing. Instead of being a beautiful process, that's another thing that's happened from the male-driven medical community, in my opinion. Yep. And not just my opinion, but books written on it, by the way, back in the 50s. But this normal, healthy process, you got to understand, if you're preparing to have a baby, shouldn't we eat more, not less?
Yes.
Like, my body's not preparing to do that. So there are certain times, this is what I'm going to say this as an example, when you're noticing menstrual cycles coming on, I trigger my women, hey, let's get ready to eat more. They've never done that before. Never. And they go, why? You're literally about to get rid of old cells and tissues and build new ones. Yeah. Shouldn't you eat some more? And so we add protein, we have more carbohydrates, and I get my women tuned in with their bodies for the first time in a long time. Yes. Most of the women I found are so out of tune with their body that they're like, I have to guide them towards, this is when you're hungry. This is when you're because sugar has screwed this up. So menstrual cycle, increase caloric intake. And then there's a certain point where it drops off, go back to your regular intake. And you use this crazy thing that God gave us called hunger. Yeah. And when you remember, we reset someone's hormones. So when you burn fat, your hunger is accurate. When you burn sugar, it is not.
Oh my goodness. I really love that you spoke about how you changed the caloric intake and the volume and the focus, especially alongside the female cycle, because you're absolutely right. Like, we have not, as women, been empowered enough to stay connected to our bodies. Like, we aren't actually equipped to really understand what's happening with our cycle and why, what's happening with our hormones and why, how does that change how we feel? How does that change our mood, our hunger, and so much more? And so the thing that I'd love to touch on with this specific piece of the puzzle is, how do you work through the mental and emotional component of this with your clients and with women? Because you hit the nail on the head. It is hard for women to embrace this idea of, I have to fuel more, I have to rest, I have to have a sleep schedule, I have to have like this idea of eating more on time and really nurturing my body well. Like, there is a serious mental and emotional component to that, and a lot of blocks that women have. And I'm curious what you see with your clients and really how you coach through that piece.
Yeah, this is a good question. And the way I answer this is that there are concepts, our brain is recording everything from our reality. So concepts are a group of ideas that someone's adopted. Okay. And so one of the first things that women have adopted is, I got to eat less to lose weight. And so the way that I help to rewire that is, you'll see I kind of did this on this call, but remember how we talked about some of the restriction?
Yeah.
When you reframe restriction to love, it changes the whole game. Yep. So who wants to restrict themselves? And they go, stop restricting yourself. I want you to start choosing yourself and loving yourself. So we love to replace false concepts with new ones that are actually helpful for people. So that's one of the things we do in our course. But I also want to say, when it comes to emotions, this is another week-long conversation that I'll make really quick, that most people have not been shown how to feel an emotion. So when emotion comes in, we've been shown from our parents, how to repress it by working harder, doing more, or how to express it. Call a family, talk to someone, go to a counselor. Doesn't that seem great? Sure. It's relief, but neither of those actually allows energy to pass through you. Yeah. And so emotions are really energy. It's in motion, right? And so what we don't face gets pushed down inside. Yeah. And so this is a key thing, because whenever someone represses an emotion, it has to express somewhere.
Yeah.
So what I found was that the body is truly a loudspeaker of what we're pushing down on the inside. Yeah. So excess fat, I can almost guarantee that someone has pushed down some big emotional trauma. So once we first start switching someone's physiology and they start losing, 10, 20 pounds in the first, 40 days, I personally have a training in our course that shows people how to feel an emotion, because emotions are going to come up when the layers start coming off.
Yes. And such an important thing to remember. And the thing that I've learned, and I really appreciate you saying this too, is that repression, like how real that repression truly is when you're trying to unpack your health journey and trying to really understand the different facets. Because to your point, when you're repressing an emotion or you're not really learning how to move through it or address it, it does show up in some facet of your life. And I know for me, like, it's been things that I've had to work through, and I work through this with my clients too, because it's part of the entire health picture that I know we have to really pay attention to,
Yeah, that's true. Yes. Yep. You've got exactly the body. You're not just a body.
Yeah.
You're a being inside there, and you have a mind and emotions, and they have been completely matter of fact, not only they've been unacknowledged inside our medical system, not our emergency system, but most of the medical system has completely overlaid it with, you have anxiety, that's bad, take a pill. You got depression, that's bad, take a pill. Instead of, what if my body and my emotions are trying to talk to me? What a crazy idea.
Yeah, what a crazy idea. Or let's explore where that's coming from and why, and how do we continue to unpack why that's actually happening. And I know that's something that I've appreciated on my journey, is learning more about asking about the why. And that's what actually helps you start to transform. Dr. Cody, I'd love to kind of revisit a little bit back towards the women over 35. I know you spoke to this a little bit about how, women often feel like everything stops working for some reason once they hit that point. And you talked a little bit about the hormones. We've talked a little bit about metabolic health, but can you explain a little bit more about why that really comes into play, especially for women in midlife? Because I hear this all the time, and I know I experience this too, and I'm sure you do too. So I'd love your perspective on that.
Yeah. And let me tell you, the way that I figured this out was not because of reading a textbook, was not because any kind of, analytical research and looking at studies. I figured this out haphazardly, like as a secondary thing. Okay. Yeah. 20 years ago, when I started going, let me figure out how to help people lose weight and let it help myself.
Yeah.
What I started noticing, when they were in my program, when they'd eat enough and eat on time, and we have a very proprietary dialed-in supplement that actually switches someone's brain from sugar to fat. When that starts happening, I started hearing women say, Dr. Golman, my hot flashes are gone.
So interesting.
I'm like, I was like, okay, why? I wasn't expecting that. Dr. Golman, my joints don't hurt anymore. Okay, that's cool. Dr. Golman, my arthritis is gone. Well, that's really cool. Dr. Golman, my brain fog is gone. Yeah. Now, what do you say to that? Because, aren't you in menopause? That's menopause. So then I started realizing the menopause bullshit story, if I can say that. Maybe we need to bleep that out. The bullshit story is, here's the bullshit story. At some point, your body has no idea what to do, and it just starts going all over the place, and you just go crazy. And your hormone, you don't have enough hormones to change. And we got a solution for you, because we have a lot of companies over here that are making the hormones that your body doesn't know how to do. That's the bullshit story.
Yeah.
So haphazardly, me figuring this out was, oh, we're switching women back over to burning fat, and they're having less menopause symptoms. What does that mean? What does that mean? And if you look at it, fat is a precursor for hormones.
Yeah.
So if someone's truly burning fat, they literally have a better quality hormone than the person over here burning sugar.
Yeah.
If you're burning sugar, I'm just saying your hormone panel is going to be all over the place, and it's using a low quality fuel source. Yeah. So the simple way to say everything I'm saying is, if you're a sugar burner, your menopause symptoms will be way worse.
Yeah.
If you're a fat burner, you're going to go, and there's many women that I have in here that are fat burners that are like, I don't know what these women are talking about. Like, yes, there is a change with your hormones. Yes, it happens. Yeah. But it was not a disease, and you are not freaking sick.
Yes.
Being a woman and age, those aren't disease factors. Okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love that you said that, because again, it's that menopause, perimenopause conversation where we are made to feel like it's all over, we're broken, you're on the road to never being able to restore how you once felt, maybe, or whatever the narrative is. And it's just encouraging to hear that that doesn't have to be the way you experience your day-to-day life. And one of the things I want to make sure we recall is how you talked about this can be your reality in your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, your 70s, like for the longevity of your life. And that's the kind of message that I want women to continue to hear, because you are not destined to feel terrible if you do. Like, there are things that you can do to help yourself feel better and to essentially restore metabolic function and essentially help your body feel optimized the way it was built and created to be. And, you know, Dr. Cody, I know that there's a woman listening to this that absolutely relates to a lot of what we're talking about, who probably feels like she's stuck in sugar burning. She's inflamed, her joints hurt, she feels exhausted, defeated, etc. You know, what would you say to her as far as like, here's a simple first starting point for you to help yourself get to a place where you're kind of on a different path?
Yeah. So first of all, if you know, fast40weightloss.com, we have a lot of resources on there. I do want to promote something because this would be helpful. This is free for people. We have a group inside school, SKOL, that is called Fit Over 40 Community. It's completely free. My patients who have lost weight are inside there, and you can join and literally interact with other women. So you don't have to listen to me talking. You can listen to them going, I'm down 20 pounds, 30 pounds, and my arthritis is gone. I'm feeling better again. So that was one of the things. Go to the Fit Over 40 community inside school or fast40weightloss.com.
Yeah, I love that. And, you know, I want to share one thing that I know you and I talked about before we even hit record today. And that was this idea of weight loss, fat loss, losing weight, et cetera. And I actually was super vulnerable with you and said, you know, I really want to learn more about what your program is. What does it mean? Because even for me, like, I have moments where I hear the word weight loss and I hear the word like just lose fat, and it becomes immediately triggering because of so much of what's been marketed to us as women and how we feel like we have to function in this box. And so really quickly, I want to kind of touch on and talk about this idea of weight loss and fat loss, like from an overall longevity health standpoint. When we peel back the BS and we peel back that language of anything that maybe felt negative and talk really in a health lens about why it matters. Can you simplify that for us? Like, why does it matter when we think about the longevity of our life?
That's a really great posing the way you pose that question, because now it's almost become like, for the women that I work with over 40, they're like, most of the women kind of go, you know what? What I'm going to do is stop weighing myself and not even worry about it anymore.
Right.
And so that's the other direction, right? Which, you're right. I have no interest in, like, the whole vanity thing of how you look is like, I didn't really care about it, but let's talk about that, because let's get real.
Yeah.
For most women that I work with, they are not being intimate with their husband or wife because they don't like how they look in their body.
Right.
Why is that important? Like human connection. Yeah. I have many women that are avoiding social settings. I have a woman just met with last week who has a wedding and a funeral She had one last month and she didn't go because she didn't look like how she looked in her clothes.
Yeah.
You go, okay, well, those are real things. Those are real deal. But
Yeah.
your question was, okay, what about the health aspect? The CDC has shown that for I can't remember what the percentage is, for every pound of fat that we have that's abnormal, it increases our risk of disease. So we know that, I mean, just about every major factor, including cancers, billions of dollars spent on cancer research, and no one's found what's causing cancer. But carrying excess weight makes you fatigued, you poor sleep. It's not just the extra fat, it's that your body's using that sugar and so the byproduct is really disease.
Yeah.
So when we talk about with women, what I think is occurring is, and I know it's occurring, is women are going to their doctor saying, I gained weight, and the doctor's saying, yeah, you know what, you're at that age. You're at the age where you gain weight. That is there's no anatomy textbook or biology textbook that says that you gain fat because of age.
Yeah.
I could also say there's no textbook that shows that you have disease because of age.
Right.
Okay. So the byproduct of inflammation, which both sugar burning and stress are the two things that I see cause that. Those are the factors that are involved. So I think that kind of puts a big blanket on that subject.
Yeah, it does. And again, it's just, I want to continue to normalize this idea of weight loss for women because again, there's just negativity around it and there's baggage around it. And a lot of women feel burdened in some way by the language or by the narrative. And at the end of the day, there are so many incredible health benefits that we have to make sure we're talking about and really like peeling back the onion on when we understand, like, what does this actually mean for our longevity? Like, I know you and I want to be around for a long, happy life. I know the clients I serve do too. And I'm sure the women you do serve as well, like want to be around for a long, happy life, have the energy for the things that matter to them, like being able to show up for their loved ones, being able to be intimate in their relationships. Like there's so many multifaceted things to this conversation inside of health. And the unfortunate part is the weight loss piece has put like this dark cloud on this idea of we should have and need to have goals related to what it means to take care of ourselves. And that's absolutely okay. And so I just appreciate all of your perspective, Dr. Golman. So many incredible things today that I can't thank you enough for sharing.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on. And I just real quickly, because you had focused on that, is I want to say something to women that fat is, I'll say it, is God's best fuel source for you.
Yeah.
So this is what's interesting is I want you to use fat.
Yeah.
We're not trying to fight against fat. We're trying to get you back into what your nature intended you to be, which was this high energy, sleeping at the right times, right? And not inflamed, right? So like that is a way to shift the narrative is actually I want to eat my fat. I want you to eat the fat off your body. It sounds gross, but that's exactly what you're doing. Like let's use the fat. Let's not hide away from it. It's a God-given great thing to use the fat.
Yes, 100%. And I appreciate you sharing that because it is a goal. And that is something that we want to continue to strive for because that is how we're able to continue to step into our most energized selves. And so thank you again, Dr. Cody. Really quick before we wrap up, will you share how people can find you, how they can connect with you online, how they can learn more about the work you're doing?
Yeah. So fast40weightloss.com. There's plenty of free resources. And then I really think I love our free community. You can literally be on there with me and our patients inside school. So it's SKOL. A lot of people are on there and it's the Fit Over 40 community, and reach out to us and we'd love to work with you and just have a conversation.
Awesome. And I'll make sure everything is connected in the show notes, listed out so you can connect with Dr. Cody at any point in time. And thank you again for your time today. So grateful for you.
Thank you, Erin. Appreciate what you're doing.
Sure thing. Take care. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. I know balancing time and energy can be a challenge, and I'm so proud of you for listening in and investing in your wellness journey. I feel incredibly grateful to connect with you and for the opportunity to share more knowledge, stories, and encouragement related to all things wellness. I would love to hear how this podcast has served you. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe and leave a review on either iTunes or Spotify. Your support truly means the world to me and helps me reach more women just like you and me who are looking to transform their health from the inside out. Plus, when you share this episode with a friend, we invite more women in to learn alongside us. What a gift. Remember, knowledge is power, and the more we know, the better we can do. for ourselves, for our families, and our future. Well done on taking the step towards a healthier, happier you. Until next week, stay empowered and stay well.